Welcome! In this series of videos, we will look at software add-ons for both the PowerBasic Console and Windows compilers. Today we will look at enhancing our web development with CSS by using the Abyss web server from Aprelium in conjunction with the PowerBasic Console compiler. This was our web page at the end of the last video. We have used a PowerBasic Console compiler application to produce a CGI program. While we have produced an output on the web page, we can certainly do a great deal more to enhance the look of the page. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to create a cascading style sheet and a few minor changes to our application to make the look of our web page more appealing. So what we'll do first of all is to zoom a bit in on this web page to make it a bit more visible. This is the code we used in the last video to generate this web page. We created a function called createWebPage version 3, and in this function we created the HTML which will be sent back to the user's browser to display on their page. While this approach works perfectly well, there will come a time when the format we're looking at is rather difficult to follow, with many HTML tags scattered through your application. So one way to make this slightly easier is to use a template, and that's what we're going to do first. On the website, I've created a page templates folder inside the CGI bin, and we're going to put our page template inside there. The advantage of doing this is that you can have many templates sitting in there, and each template will be the skeleton of the web page you wish to display. We'll call our template userlist.txt. So if we open that up, this template will contain the raw HTML code, and within this template will be one or more tags, and these tags will be replaced by your CGI application at runtime. So we will first open up an HTML tag, and we'll set the head tag to have the title of our web page. And I'm also going to use a meta tag in here to say that the web page has already expired. One of the problems on web pages is if the browser thinks the web page has not changed, the browser will attempt to use the cache it had from the last time it visited this web page. But if we tell it that the expired date has been sometime in the past, then the browser should attempt to get the current version of the web page from the website. Now, to enhance our web page slightly, I'm going to put a header at the top of the web page. And this header is going to be basically a table with a background color. It will incorporate two elements, one being the name of the page we're actually displaying, and the second being a logo which we will create. And the logo will exist inside a graphics folder, which is one folder up from our CGI bin. And having displayed this header at the top, we want now to put the data in. So I'm going to use this string here as being the tag we're going to replace at runtime, so that this one template could be used for many different result sets. So if we save that now, that's the template created. Now we need to go back into our PowerBasic code so we can load up the template. So we're going to create a new function called version 4 to create our web page. As before, we're using a variable strhtml to contain our HTML and another for our template. The template's location is the exe path, which is the CGI bin folder, and the page templates subdirectory, and then our userlist.txt. We will then make use of one of the functions within our file handling routines library to load that entire file into a single variable. So we'll be loading this template into our HTML variable. And all we need now is to use the PowerBasic replace command to replace our data tag with the contents of a function we're about to write. This function will return the user list, which will be all the data we want to display inside our table. And once we've got that replaced, we can then use the write CGI command to write the data back to the browser. So the getUserList function we're about to write is very similar to the core of the function we wrote in the last application. This function is basically going to make up the data which will sit within the table on the web page. So we're first populating the file name, which is the myfile.csv, which contains the data we wish to display. We're then using another function from within our library to load up the CSV file into an array. And the array we're putting into is this str work array. And should this function fail to load our CSV file, we're just going to put back the string no data, which would appear on our web page. So we're using exactly the same code as we did in our last application. We're basically building up the content of the str HTML string to contain a table. The table will have a number of rows, depending how many rows we returned inside the array, and each row will have a number of columns. And each column element will be the element within the array itself. Once we get to the last element of the array, we will then close off the table and return the contents of str.html to the calling function. So now we've got a CGI demo 2, we will then copy this over to our CGI bin on the web server. And we will attempt to call it. And there is our new updated web page. As you can see, the body of the text is exactly the same as we had before, but the difference is we now have a large banner headline and a logo. So now we've amended the top of our web page, we're now taking the whole web page from a template. How can we change the text that appears in our table to look more attractive? This is where we're going to use a cascading style sheet. So on our website we have a CSS folder on the root of the website. At the moment there's nothing in this folder, and it's in here we're going to create our cascading style sheet. And we'll call it am.css. And we'll open this in Notepad. You can use applications to help you create cascading style sheets, but we're just going to use Notepad here today because what we're doing is very basic and is quite easy to understand just looking at Notepad. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the font that's in use on the web page. We can do this very easily by putting an element in the cascading style sheet to handle the body. So we're setting the background color to be white, and we're setting the font family. Now if we just save this, now the web page itself will not recognize that we have a cascading style sheet yet because our template has not yet been updated. So let's have a look at the template again. Here is our template. Now at the very top of the template we need to put a link into our cascading style sheet, like so. We are linking to the cascading style sheet by using relative pathing. 2 dots to go up one directory, down to the CSS folder, and there is our CSS file. So if we save that in our template, and if we go back to our application and then just run the application on the website once more, we'll see that the font has now changed. So a single change to our cascading style sheet allows us to change the font on the entire page. So what else can we do just by amending this style sheet? Well, let's see if we can do something to the table. If we'll put a tag in for the table, and we will save that, and we will now rerun the application. So we've now changed the border around our table to be single lines rather than double lines. We're getting there. The next thing to look at is the space, the padding between where the text begins and where the edge of the box exists. So we're going to use another table command to put a 10 pixel border around everything. So if we save that and just run the application again, we'll see that we now have a border around the edge of all the text. So it's already looking slightly better. So what else can we actually do? Well, the other thing we can do is we can actually set up some logic in the Cascading Style Sheet which can be activated from inside our application. So we'll need to go back to the PowerBasic app now. So our create web page actually calls the function to get the user list. Now we're going to create a new user list and we're going to enhance it slightly. So we'll copy the user list function we have at the moment and we will amend from inside there. And this will be our user list version 2. Now we're going to create 3 additional local variables to allow us to amend the definition of rows and headers. So we'll create 3 new local variables: a table definition string, a table row header string, and a back color string. Now we're going to set up a table class so that when we actually open a table, rather than just having the word table, it will be followed by the word class, and then after the equals in double quotes will be the name of the class and what we're actually setting. So we will replace the reference to table with this variable here. So we can take that bit of code out. And we will use our table row header again to pick up a class for the row itself, and we will call that table list header. So rather than the tr command, we will replace that with this variable. So having put that change in place, we'll then go into our Cascading Style Sheet. So we're going to put a little more configuration into this Cascading Style Sheet. So there is our table list, which we referenced up here in the class, both for a table, for table headers, and table data. And we're setting a border for 1 pixel, solid, and this color, and we're also setting the table width in here as well. And our table list header, which is the bit we did for the table row header, we're doing a background color, and we're doing the font color to be white. So if we save this, we will recompile our application. Right, our application should compile cleanly now, and we will copy that down to our web server. Right, so if we try running that now, we will see we've now got a colour scheme which matches our header. However, we don't want everything to be that colour. I would like to highlight each of these successive rows in a different shade. So how can we achieve that? Let's go back to our Cascading Style Sheet again. We'll want each successive row to be either this colour or white. So we're looking for a banding approach. So I'm going to add 2 new elements to our Cascading Style Sheet. One for handling odd number rows and one for handling even number rows. The even number rows will be white and the odd number rows will be a light blue colour. So if we save this, we'll have to go back into our code to make a few minor adjustments. So in here, where we're starting a new row, we need to work out whether the row is odd or even. So we know if long R equals 0, it means we're doing the header line. So we'll put an if statement in there. This allows us to set the table row header just for the first row. And having set that, we now have to work out whether long R is odd or even. And the easiest way of doing that is to use the mod command. So if long R is divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0, then this first part will actually function. And this is where we're going to use the back color variable. So we're going to populate the back color variable with the word class and then equals, and this will be our new banding even. and where the remainder is not 0, we'll make it a new banding odd. And then once we've done that, we then have to update the HTML so that this starts a new row with this back color in place. So if we try compiling that, and we will then copy that into our web server. And if we try running it once more, we'll see that the look of our web page has changed quite remarkably. We not only have our header and our logo at the top of our page, but we have a header line which has highlighted all of the column headers, and each subsequent line is a different banding color, which makes it very easy to read and much more appealing on the eye. So today we've managed to take a fairly simple list coming back from our CGI application and display it on our web page. What we'll do in our next video is we will attempt to gather information from the user on the web page and use that to drive the functionality of the backend CGI application. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.